Hey, everyone.
Hey, morning, Sue. How are you doing?
Awesome.
Okay.
Living the dream.
Well, why don't we go ahead and jump right into it?
Done.
Okay. All right. So I know you've eyesight's been going on for some time across the IC. Could you talk a little bit about, how you're leveraging metadata tagging and data architecture and all those things, and how it's affected the IC today?
Gosh, I'm so proud of eyesight. It was the vision of my predecessors who I think started with the idea of efficiency, that we should do in common what was commonly done. But having invested in it for that purpose, what we really find is that it allows integration in a really serious way. And if integration isn't a cliche, then you have to be able to work. And if you have to be able to work, this putting data in is a cool idea, but if you can't use the data, if you can't put the data in action, then you're not really going to be able to do something with it. You'll have it, but you won't be able to do it. So I think our most immediate focus is being data-centric, being able to use the data that we have put in there to free it from applications, and to go forward. So data is the whole game. Data tagging allows you to put data to work.
Yeah.
And we've learned a lot. When we started eyesight, we were really thinking about tag the data, tag the people.
Yeah.
And now we're focusing on getting the right data to the right people at the right time. So all the things that you need to have in order to put data to work are really the focus. And metadata and data tagging are really a foundational capability.
Yeah, and could you talk a little bit about how that links into identity management? I mean, I know that we worked a little bit at a number of places on filtering dynamically what you can see based on identity management and tagging together.
Right, so if you're in the intelligence community, you know that we are living through a constant struggle between protecting information and sharing information. Almost any day in the news, you're watching us affect that struggle. But in a digitally connected world, whether that digital connectedness is our community or whether it extends beyond that to our partners, that notion of being able to both work together and ensuring that you are protecting both the sources and methods and the data, but also the relationships is really important. So identity, credential, and access management is fundamental to that. Yeah. And having trust in that, being able to know that it is going to work, is what is going to allow us to be operating at reach and at speed. So I can't think of anything we're going to be able to do if we can't effect it, have confidence in it, and have it work with all the data types that we need, whether that is in Washington in the bureaucracy, or it's all the way at reach with our most deployed users.
Yeah, so across the IC, they've sort of been a leader in adopting the cloud.
We're really proud of that.
Yeah, and it's really amazing how much you guys have leaned in, and also the cloud has adapted to you in a partnership, which has been pretty exciting for me to watch as we go through ATO and security improvements and other things like that for the cloud. Can you talk a little bit about how you're planning to, now that you have this tagging system in place, the nice thing about the cloud is you can really leverage machine learning because you can scale way up, use thousands of cores, do a bunch of machine learning, and then generate a model, and then turn all that off, which is nice because you don't have to pay for it anymore. How are you going to use machine learning to generate tags automatically? Because that could really accelerate things. Have you thought about that?
I'll get to your last point in maybe 3 steps, but they'll be brief, tight, focused steps, I promise. The first is continuation of my theme of, you wanted to use eyesight, right? You wanted to do something with it. So the first thing that is, the choice to go to the commercial cloud and then cloud technologies in general, I think, was probably one of the greatest innovations of my career. And we basically got into it together, knowing that it had potential, but I think neither one of us really understood how that potential was going to evolve. And I think we've grown up together, and we learned a lot about security, about scaling, about computing, And now we're learning about how to have hybrid architectures too, because what we learned is in our initial idea, we'd be able to do it one way, and now what we're learning is I have mature organizations that are going to be able to need to do different sorts of things, and how is that going to work? So just our arc together has been really fascinating. When we started, we thought all the work was going to be done by people. Right, and so our tagging strategy, whether that was how we tag data for sharing and identity protection, or how you tag data for it to be able to be used by applications, it was really with a human mindset about how humans were going to do it. And even our efficiency plays was, how am I going to use machines to do things automatically, so that people don't have to do those things, thinking rather than counting. But this notion that if I project to the future, so many things are going to be machine tagged. There's machines that are going to have to do everything from making tagging decisions, but also how the data are used, I think is a really big translation that we're still aborting in terms of how we think about that.
Yeah. There's been some amazing stuff too done with network intrusion detection and tipping and queuing based on machine learning at the edge, which is interesting.
Almost any one of our dimensions of infrastructure use, whether it is protecting the infrastructure, whether it is getting data in to the infrastructure, doing that, and we started this really with the intelligence community. Now if you see what the Department of Defense is doing, well, of course I have to be able to interact with the Department of Defense, because intelligence to our most distributed user is important. So how you get the data in is going to be affected by machines, and then how our people think about what the data reveals is going to be affected by machines. And I think all of that is important. And so I think tagging, security, and use will all be affected going forward. So we still have work to do.
Yeah, so one of the things I think that your team was really instrumental in was also extending the cloud to the edge.
Yeah.
And the ability to run right on the very edge. And you were some of the first to use that kind of edge capability with the snowball edge clusters and those kinds of things. Can you talk a little bit about that and how you see the cloud extending to the edge, where it can operate where there's no network, for example?
Yeah, so again, back to I'm feeling like a broken record, but really for everyone, you have to think about how you want to use this stuff. I think that's the biggest thing that we've learned over our eyesight journey has been, it has to exist, but you get a whole different set of considerations when you're trying to actually do your mission in terms of mission performance. So for us, because we are a worldwide business, we need the same performance wherever we are. And because of advances technically, I can actually do compute at the edge, I can do analysis at the edge, I can do, but doing that securely, doing that quickly, and doing that with all the kind of data has made us be edge leaning. If I were to say what the biggest hurdle is going to continue to be, it's going to be insecure. Right, is in securing at the edge. Can we have as much confidence there? Because it's usually that security piece that makes us want to be centralized and hold, but performance coupled with the advent of technology will let us move there, but security will be the piece that is most deterministic of how far we can go.
So can you talk, as you've worked on this transformation to the commercial cloud, which has been really accelerated across the IC, can you talk about the cultural changes? I mean, adopting technology is usually not that hard. It's always the people piece. Could you talk a little bit about the people piece in that transformation?
So the most exciting thing to me is when we started this journey, it was about efficiency and getting to a modern technology stack. And so who were the people that were really dominant in that quest? It was our technology professionals, and made a bunch of great technology decisions. And what we formed to go along with that is a thing called a mission user group. because our idea was, no, we gotta get the voice of the user.
Right.
We have just actually decommissioned and celebrated away the end of our mission user group.
Wow.
Because now what I need is my mission leaders to be using this. And we have not suffered a degradation in use, but actually an explosion, because now we have created the pull from our users and trying to get them to be absolutely demanding about the performance they need to have to do their mission is probably the best generator of advance. But our partners will feel that,
Right.
because now we have people who want it to actually do something, not just exist for them.
Yeah, so can you talk a little bit about how the use of the cloud accelerated your mission and the day-to-day accelerations you sort of see?
Right. Our minders are going to be horrified because I'm about to go backwards to answer a question.
All right.
And you asked the cultural piece.
Yeah.
I think it was a cultural impediment because the cost of getting virtualized, to getting to the cloud, was borne by people who didn't immediately benefit from it.
Right.
Right. And so that was probably the biggest hurdle to overcome, was the cost to be present.
Right.
What we didn't envision was what we have now is just the explosion in use. I don't think, early on we were basically telling people that they had to put their data there.
Right.
Now we can't keep them from putting the data there. The data exists. Now what we really have to work on are mechanisms for them to be able to get easy access, for integration to cost nothing, and for presence in the cloud to basically be freely accessible, because their minds are just popping in terms of what they want to do. And we didn't anticipate that demand when we were focusing so hard on getting it to work. And so I think that's what we're feeling now, is all those things that will allow demand to be realized in an effective way. But that's exciting, right? That's a problem you want to take on.
Right. That is
for all the
exciting.
reasons that our previous panel was talking about, the things that they want to be able to do with data.
Yeah.
I can imagine doing those things with data because of the infrastructure that we invested in, even before we knew how that was going to play out, and even though we have had to solve a lot of issues. And the fact that we have now the opportunity to imagine doing hybrid architectures with open standards is all allowed by the fact that we committed early, and now we can see how it can play out.
Yeah, and I think that's been fascinating too, to watch the IC also move to these open source
Yeah.
interfaces.
Yeah.
So with these open source interfaces, you've got lots of flexibility.
We do.
You can use lots of different types of interaction.
Yeah.
You can use hybrid environments. You can operate across a bunch of different applications and seamlessly move things.
Right.
back
And when
and
you go
forth.
that way, your tent gets really big.
Yeah.
And the previous panel talked about speed and agile, and you talked about ATO, and all those things are enabled when you go forward. In other words, our tent got bigger. And so now, we talk a lot about acquisition agility or lack thereof. One of the keys to acquisition agility is you actually have an environment that allows a good idea to take hold.
Right. I mean, can you talk a little bit about the partnership that you've had to have with the cloud provider in this case? I mean, it's been very tight as far as enabling the security and the capabilities and in moving into this environment.
Yeah, let's see if I can't make this answer worthy of our last one.
Okay.
Because I'm going to make our team happy, because you and I are going to stay on this. Boy, throughout my career, which is long, all the great advances we've made have been in partnership with industry. It works. What makes the government go is that we are fair and transparent and repeatable, and our contracting process is really important. What makes things work is when, once you've gotten through all those things, now you have a partner who is with you saying, is it working? Is it working? Is it working? What do we need? What do we need? And I think that's probably been the most exciting part of our cloud development.
Right.
Has been, we've had a partner that was as committed to our needs as we were committed to the possibility of the capability. And so all of us should strive for that.
Yeah, and I've found it very satisfying to also take input from the intelligence agencies and put that into our commercial products. So our commercial products
Yeah,
are
we're
the
demanding.
same. Yeah, you are demanding,
Right.
and that's a good thing,
Right.
because it causes us to raise the bar
Right.
continuously, and I think that has enabled us to put those features into our commercial products. And a lot of the security requirements you had just exist now in our commercial products that our commercial customers can now
Right.
leverage, right? So they sort of have that same level of security that you have, which is pretty exciting for all of our customers.
Yeah, so this is, if you believe in the engine of a great society,
Right.
you've just described it, which is the government, big purpose,
Right.
great need that is a little beyond the capability of what's existent,
Yeah.
and then the energy and innovation and investment of the private sector to say, oh, we can do that and then go along.
Yeah, yeah.
So good day.
Can you talk a little bit about training? Because that's always one of the important parts of the transformation, right? Is how do you get, demystify the cloud and get people to be able to use it? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Okay, so
and how you do
really
that?
let's see if I can do this in 2 tweets.
Okay.
The first thing is what doesn't come with an iPad?
Uh-huh.
Instructions, right?
Yeah.
So intellectually, we have got to make things intuitively obvious to use, not big training videos, not big training classes, otherwise it won't.
Yeah.
That's what happens entirely. That's the way our engine works. And the second thing is you have to put it in the workflow so that working on the data in the environment is consistent with working on the work.
Right.
And I think when I say we need to make the cost of integration zero, it's continuing to work on that front.
Yeah.
And that's as much our issue as any technical development.
So what keeps you up at night now? Have you
Oh,
thought
I
about
wish
that?
I were Jim Mattis, and no one would remember that he says, nothing keeps me up at night. I keep people up at night. I wish it's like the best answer of all time, and damn it, he used it. The quotable Jim Mattis. I think what I say, what keeps me up at night is relevant to the topic we have, is that in my business, that the answer exists and I can't find it. Mm-hmm. So one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about this is because I'm passionate about the role that intelligence plays for the nation.
Yeah.
And if you are inspired by the possibility of a data-rich world and compelled by the mission that I feel, then we have got to keep advancing because the potential of getting it right is massive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think the answer is probably there in the data already. It's just a matter of pulling it out.
Yep.
And
So there we
managing
go.
those kinds of things.
I think we've more than used our time because my clock's now going up.
It's going up. All right.
Yeah.
So I guess we have to
Yeah.
well, thank you so much.
You
It's
bet.
been fascinating hearing from you.
Awesome. Thank
Thanks,
you all.
everyone.
Thanks for listening.